Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Hiker Sessions. This is where we speak with long-distance hikers, day hikers, and everyone in between. As some of you know, this show was born out of my love for backpacking and specifically the community of the trail after I finished my 2024 Appalachian Trail through hike. Today, I am joined by an individual that, quite frankly, I've been, I guess maybe giddy's, maybe not the right word, but excited about speaking with all week. His name is Casey Huffman, or Vegas as he's known on the trail. In 2023, he hiked the Foothills Trail, as well as completing a through hike of the Appalachian Trail. In 2024, he hiked the West Highland Way in Scotland and the Ozark Highlands Trail. He's also hiked the 343-mile Sheltowee Trail, Sheltowee Trace Trail, which I want to ask you about. I'd never heard of that one. It's in Kentucky and northern Tennessee, the Long Trail in Vermont, and he just recently finished his 2025 through hike of the Pacific Crest Trail. Welcome to the show, Vegas.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this all week as well.
Before we get into some questions about what appears to me to be a transformation of happiness, if you will, for you coming off the trail, because I've heard you in other podcasts. What percentage of people in your life right now call you Casey?
Oh, every time somebody calls me Casey, if it's over text, I send the Star Wars GIF of Obi-Wan going, "Now that's a name I've not heard in a long time," because that's like how I feel. I think maybe talking to my parents or my old Muggle friends back from like Maryland where I used to live, they'll still every now and then call me that, and I'm just like, ugh. Otherwise, even like the seasonal work gigs, I'm always Vegas. Like I left Casey somewhere in the mountains.
Yeah. What kind of led you to that feeling of wanting to do that? Leave Casey behind.
Uh, Casey is he was a miserable SOB. He was just I mean before the AT through hike, I like there's in a serious way I was like really unhappy, like mental health problems and stuff like that. But also, as with anybody who after they finish a through hike, you come back and it's just like you're totally chilled out, you're more patient, you're more able to just kind of take things as they come. And I think as uh glowing and happy and vibrant as I am on trail, prior to my first experience backpacking, I was the opposite of that in the Muggle world. Like, Casey was just he was miserable. He was a miserable guy. And I knew I could only do that for so long. Casey had a shelf life. If you know what I mean.
What did you do, if you don't mind me asking, before you started hitting the trail on Springer Mountain?
Like, are you talking like work stuff or just like my hiking background?
Yeah. Let's start with the work stuff, and then maybe some of your hiking background, and then leading you to step foot on Springer.
Yeah, sure. So I actually I was so aimless and just without purpose for so long. Because I think and I've talked about this a bit before, but until I was about like 6 or 7, I was I wouldn't say I was a normal happy-go-lucky kid, but I love running around barefoot in the woods, and just like building tree houses and playing lightsabers or soldiers or whatever. Like I was a wannabe Peter Pan, basically. And then not long after that, we moved from closer to Baltimore down to like Annapolis in Maryland, and I was instantly just thrown right into the ringer with like therapy and medication and like, I remember, it's not like I lost time or anything like that too bad, but I was just like a total zombie. I was like, I had no hobbies, I had no interests. I was just bleh, like, no personality. Um, and so I think I was drifting through like community college for a couple years after high school, and I was able to get like a 2-year associate's degree. I was in college like for 6 years after high school, just like not doing anything. Um, and I was able to finally get like a 2-year degree that had the concentration in like accounting and then geography. So I worked a job in like the accounting department. That was like my first big Muggle job. But then my second Muggle job that I identify with the most I worked in utility forestry, so that was like kind of cool because I got to like I was my office was like just like a Ford F-150 truck. So I was like driving around the woods underneath the if you can see the tattoo on my arm, like the big steel towers there. So I got to like make maps of the trees around the power lines. Like that was kind of cool, but I also feel like I was a Disney villain, like saying that tree needs to get cut down, that one needs to get trimmed. Like I don't know what that maybe it wasn't Disney, but some kids movie where like, the bad guys are the ones that are like, messing with the trees and stuff. But being in the woods, I really, really like that. And that combined with like coming off of medication and trying to get back into like the right frame of mind. There was a couple years there where I was rediscovering, oh, I remember how much I love being outside. And on my days off and stuff like that, I would go hiking and I went fishing in the Chesapeake Bay a lot too. And little by little, like after it got too cold to fish, we would start hiking and like urban exploring. Cause if anybody knows anything about Baltimore, there's tons of urban decay and rot in that city. Like, I don't know what holds it against me that I came from there. But our radius of where we would look for trails to hike would get bigger and bigger until that fateful day I stumbled upon the Maryland section of the AT. Um, and the rest is history.
How much backpack? Because we both know, hiking and backpacking is different.
Oh,
How
yeah.
much backpacking experience did you have before you started on Springer Mountain?
So that was actually the first time I ever backpacked in my life was because I discovered the AT in Maryland just hiking it. And I think I had never, like, I had been hiking in local areas and stuff like that, and then found the Maryland section of the AT. And then it was after I stumbled upon that I spent my first night outside in the woods. I had gone camping as like a younger kid, but it was at least 10 years. And I got like a cheap Amazon backpack and tent and whatever. And I started just spending one night on the Maryland section of the AT. And then I think I did a couple 2-night trips. And then I think twice I had my dad drop me off. I would leave my car at like close to Harper's Ferry, like the Weaverton Cliffs. And then my dad and I would meet there and he would drive me up to the Mason-Dixon line. Cause I never wanted to spoil the AT outside of Maryland. I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna through hike one day. So like I'll only do Maryland. And I did a little bit south of Harper's Ferry into Virginia, but not much. So I think it was 2 times that I soboed Maryland, like back to Harper's Ferry. And then I think 2 times after that, maybe 3 times, I like yo-yoed it, like Harper's Ferry, Mason Dixon, back to Harper's Ferry. And the more I did it, the more that the year I was planning my AT through hike got like sooner and sooner and sooner until I finally I was so fed up with the Muggle world. That's what I call it, the Harry Potter reference. I said, to hell with this. And I literally quit my job and I had a little townhouse I was paying a mortgage on, quit my job, sold my house, and went down to Springer with a 68-pound backpack. I'm not making that number up. And yeah,
That got you in shape real quick, that heavy backpack.
yeah.
Hey, you mentioned those opportunities out there in Maryland. Did you meet other through hikers like Sobos or Nobos while you were out there? And what was your kind of sense of them, any of them that you hung out with or were around?
So you might have heard, I'll show it now, the yes and the no tattoos. You might have heard of those. But I would see other hikers, but because I was coming out to the trail for a happy place and I was still kind of I didn't have my trail name, obviously. I was still miserable Casey and not happy Vegas. Um, I I didn't talk to anybody. Like, through hikers are some of the nicest freaking people in the world. And so people would like try, and if anybody out there listening met me during those days, like please accept my apologies because like I was a jerk. Um, I wouldn't really look people in the eye, and I would just raise the yes hand or raise the no hand, and that was my early introduction to through hikers. Was like I really remember thinking like, why are they so nice? Leave me alone. I'm out here to just do my thing. And then now going back, anytime I'm on any of those trails, you see people and even if I'll see somebody happy and I love stopping to chat with them, as I'm sure you do anytime you're back on the AT. And then even if I see somebody who looks like they're not in a good mood, I'll still smile and just kind of, I can tell if somebody don't want to talk, but I'm still going to smile at them because like I've been there. I know what that's like. So, but I'm still going to smile at you.
What was your expectation when you started in Georgia that you were just gonna do basically a solo hike and just get out there and learn some things like you had mentioned and then just finish the hike and go off to the next hike? Was that
Yeah.
kind of how it looked like in your
Yeah.
mind?
Yeah. That was, it was definitely that I wouldn't really talk to anybody, wouldn't make a lot of friends. I mean, I wasn't like on a vow of silence. I knew I was going to have to talk to people every now and then, but I was not out there to socialize or to, um, I wasn't out there for camaraderie, which now that's why I find myself keeping going back out. I mean, there's still the inner geography and outdoorsman and lover of nature. Of course, that's a good chunk of it, but also the camaraderie. Again, as I'm sure you know, I'm sure we'll have a lot of overlap here, but it's unlike anything else in the whole world. Um, but yeah, I think the expectation was that I wasn't going to socialize, I wasn't going to make friends, and you know, without going too much into it, although I can go as much into it as you would like. I wasn't sure I was coming back, kind of a thing. I might have just been walking off into the woods, and that might have been it. If I didn't find what I was looking for, I had exhausted all my options in the Muggle world, so to speak, and I kind of left my family and the little friends that I still had in Maryland. If I don't find what I'm looking for out here, like I don't know if I come back, you're just gonna have to throw me into an inpatient psychiatric facility, which I'd been in a couple times, and just let me rot. Cause like I give up if I don't find what I'm looking for out there. But oh, I found it.
Did you what were you looking for? Did you know what you were looking
No,
for?
I didn't. No, I didn't know what I was looking for. I couldn't have put a word to it. Um, but I can remember. I mean, it creeps up, or at least for me, it crept up on me what I was looking for. Because I think even around day 3, like just after a mountain crossing, like the hostel and outfitter, um, that was kind of when I started to first run into the same people over and over. Um, and I gave somebody their trail name there, which 30 miles in, I'm giving somebody their trail name, and I wasn't even supposed to talk to anybody. And that was kind of when I started to like something inside me kind of loosened up, and it hit me that like, oh, like the same reason I'm out here, there's a lot of people out here for like the exact same reason or close to the same reason. And I think kind of like as much as I still to this day probably couldn't name what I was looking for, I started to see a little bit of it. Um, and then I think the time it really hit me full force that I have found what I'm looking for, and there is hope. Um, it was the day we left Mountain Harbor in Tennessee hiking north, which, you know, that's in the grand, it felt like I'd been out there for a lifetime at that point, but that's not even that far into the hike. But that was when I had my first, like, I mean, I'm sure on paper it was just a huge dopamine rush, but it was almost I'm not a religious man, but it was almost like akin to a religious experience kind of a thing. So yeah.
What you mentioned earlier, you when you came back from your through hike of the Appalachian Trail, you felt like you were more patient. So, and that's one thing too that I think I learned, if you will, from the trail. Were there other things that you took from the trail that you can put words to?
Yeah, I think, you know, it's almost like yeah, there's a couple things, and it's almost like the how so you know our mutual good friend Steve Adams, Mighty Blue, he always jokes that you have that 3-week period after a hike to tell all your stories because after that nobody gives a crap. And it's funny how I also kind of have a similar thing there in that I think at least for your first through hike, you have like here's what you kind of realize you've learned 5 days after, and then maybe 2 weeks after, and then a month after. Like there's different kind of inner truths that kind of come to light, I think. Um, and I think one of the first big ones was like, if I can, if I can do that, like I don't have anything to be scared of. And by I think all hikers should feel that way. And even if, you know, if you know, everybody of course sets out, or most folks set out at Springer to hit Katahdin. But even if you make it 1,000 miles, like that's still a long way. That's still a huge accomplishment. So, if you can last through that much, uh, a prolonged period of being uncomfortable like that, that's a victory. And I think that was probably one of the first big things I realized was you can do that. Anything because like, your grandparents, your parents always tell you that you can do anything you put your mind to. And as a kid, you're just like, okay, but maybe it means I'm getting old because it was like, wow, I finally like I called my Grandma Vegas, God rest her soul. I called her not long after I finished, and I was like, I think you were right. I think anything I want to do, I can do it. So that was one of the things I learned, and amongst other things, like even smaller stuff. Again, you're more patient, you're more uh empathetic, a lot of good positive inner truths.
You mentioned the difficulty of doing the trail or any of these long trails, whether you make it the whole way or just go 1,000 miles, as you said. Do you think that difficulty, not only the physical, obviously, going up and down mountains and hiking through water and all that stuff, and then you got the mental difficulty part of it, which I think anyone who does a long trail experiences. Do you think all those combined is what breaks down the walls out there that allows people to open up?
Yeah, I think uh when you see somebody at their most hilariously primal and hilariously but also like seriously, I mean, you know, it's a common saying I think on trail that, the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. Every all your emotions are like magnified out there, and I'm sure you felt that. But like when you see somebody at their highest high, but then, like, their lowest low, like, you're around strangers that, I literally have, like, crap in my pants, and I'm covered in mud, and I'm freezing right now. Like, I don't even think my parents have ever seen me like this, and they've wiped my ass, like, you know what I mean? So so, I think there's a shared trauma kind of a thing that I think brings about, and then also, the shared trauma aspect of it, and then also, something I think ties into like the post trail depression subject matter is that like there's a so I'm a, I play music. I'm a musician. Is one of the other things I do outside of hiking. And it's a bit of a PG-13 saying, but there's a saying that amongst the music scene is that like your music buddies and your drug buddies are like the closest friends you'll have because like they see you with the lowest lows and the highest highs. And I have edited that saying to your music buddies, your drug buddies, and your hiking buddies. Become like the closest friends you have because again it falls into that same category. You see each other in a way that even like I'm not married, but even spouses, I don't think I've probably seen, guys like men that I've hiked with, I've seen them more uh compromised than like their wives have seen them. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. Do you think that in our open, I mentioned some of the trails that you've hiked, and I'm jealous. There's a couple on there, especially the West Highland Way. I'd love to do.
Oh yeah.
Do you think if tomorrow someone said, "Well, Vegas, you had a good run, but you can't backpack or hike anymore," how do you think you'd feel about that?
Oh, uh I so if I had a physical injury that kept me from like physically hiking, I think I could it would take me a while, but I think I could be okay in the long run because the community is still there. Like I could still become a trail angel or I could still somehow be a part of that community. If you took the community away from me, uh that wouldn't work. No way.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really happy you brought that point up because I think that part of the trail, when you talk to people who have never experienced hiking a long trail, I think that is the part that for me, even with my own wife and, loved ones and friends, it's very difficult to explain that, I find. Have you experienced that as well? That community aspect of it?
Yeah, I have found that it's hard to explain to folks the only time I see people kind of even get a glimpse of understanding that, like even what I might be talking about, and I think I even noticed this parallel before I would try to describe it, is cops or veterans. Like I think the brotherhood, sisterhood, camaraderie in general. That's I mean, I've never served in the military. I have my uncle was a police officer. But I have not even talked to him about the camaraderie, but some of my hiking partners, like my buddies Typical and Big Willie Dog, um, they are both retired. Uh, one was a Jersey Shore cop and one was an Ohio State trooper. And like they have said, they have group chats with their fellow retired officers, and they don't even talk to them like they talk to the hikers still. So I think, when you put it in that context, there are people that kind of, that's a good way to explain it to muggles, non-hiking folk.
I've heard you talk about Big Willie Dog a couple times and some other. I mean, I have my really close friends because when you're out there, like you said, you have your tramley or what have you, and then you've also got what I call it my tribe. It's like 20 or so people that you see them one day and you don't see them next, but you run into them and you're not hiking with them per se, right? But they're in your vicinity. Were you surprised at how, and because you mentioned those names like Big Willie Dog, I've heard you on other podcasts, how deep and lasting those relationships and bonds were? Did that surprise you? After you got off the trail?
No, I think it would have surprised Casey, you know, before I had hiked, but once you're once you're out there, once you've gone through that stuff together, as you well know, n- uh, no, it doesn't surprise me that we're still as bonded as we are to this day. I mean, like we literally talk damn near every day. And that's with, very rarely, like you said, that you have your inner tramley. I like that, your usage of tribe and tramley. Usually I'll say it like tier one tramley or like extended tramley for like, the outside of the inner circle. But even for folks of like the tribe category or like the extended tramley, very rarely have I hiked, more than a few days with somebody that I don't talk with at least, you know, I mean, like, yeah, once a month at the bare minimum, probably more often. Like if I've hiked with you for any semblance of time, I'm gonna be checking in with you at least once a month. That's just how I am.
I'm 100%. I'm
Yeah.
the same way. I saw it along that vein. I saw you had just done it recently, a Virginia Triple Crown reunion hike.
Oh, yeah.
I like the sound of that. I don't, tell me just a little quick details of that thing. That sounded cool.
Oh, yeah, that was so much fun. That's actually how I got the second half of my trail name. My full trail name is Vegas the Pied Piper. And my buddy Million Bucks once made the joke. He's like, "You're like the Pied Piper of hikers because like you're the guy I was pushing for these reunion hikes. Living full time out of the SUV and just working a few months here, working a few months here. And then, I usually work about 6 months out of the year and then I'm hiking the other 6 months. And so Million Bucks made a joke. He's like, "You're always up in the mountains, and every now and then you play that flute, and we kind of just follow you up into the mountains." That's how I got that second half. And we've made that a continuing
Yeah.
tradition, ever since, the 2023 AT through hike. We do this thing called Hikes Giving. I mean, we've only done it once, but I'm trying to push for it to be a tradition. And we did a Shenandoah reunion hike. We did the Virginia Triple Crown was the most recent one. And usually it's just once a year, you know, the whoever's in is like, "Hey, what are we doing this year? And when are we doing it?" And whenever everybody has time off and the stars align, we figure something out and we make it work. And I had been wanting to do the Virginia Triple Crown again for a while. So yeah, everything fell into place for that specific stretch of trail to happen this year. But I'm pretty sure we'll be doing that until it's we're 80 something and we're not even hiking. We're just like hanging out in a shelter.
That sounds pretty cool to me. It's a
Oh
great
yeah,
idea, and I definitely would like to follow your example on that.
for
So when
sure.
you finished when you started your through hike of the Appalachian Trail, in your mind, did you already know that you were going to be like, okay, after I finish this one, I'm going to go and do the Pacific Crest Trail, or did that Was that hiking the Pacific Crest Trail, which you finished this year? Was that something that came up like sometime after you had finished the AT?
Um, so because of the way I am, and I think a lot of hikers are this way. Like hikers will say, I am this way," and I think a lot of us are. Um, if I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it 100%. I'm extremely black and white with stuff. So I would have been able to guess once I had settled into my own on the AT. Once Casey was somewhere left in the mountains and Vegas was continuing the AT hike. Um, I would have been able to guess that if I do keep this up, I'm gonna go all the way. Like, you hear all the time, you hike 1 or you hike 3. You don't stop at 2. Um, so when I finished the AT, um, and just like here after finishing the PCT, like I was tired and like I was tired. I'm starting to get a little bit more active again now and stuff. Um, but so after finishing the AT, I let myself be like, okay, let's see how you feel. Cause like I think, and probably you felt this way too, coming after a through hike, of course you right away miss the camaraderie, you miss the culture and the community, but you don't miss the hiking for like a week or two because like you're dog crap tired. Um, so after finishing the AT, I said, let me see how I feel. Cause like, yeah, if you ask me right now, I never want to hike again. Like, obviously that's not the case, but like, let my body chill out because just because I miss the community, you know, because, one of those inner truths that, and I had realized was like, okay, there is community out there. There are good people out there. There's good stuff out there. So is it hiking or is it just camaraderie? Because like maybe I can find other things that I'm into and I could find community with. And I think it took maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks before I was in group chats for one of the next big three trails 2025. So I think it took all of 2 weeks before I didn't know it was going to be the PCT. I knew it was going to be one of them in 2025. Um, but yeah, it wasn't long before I realized like I might as well just keep doing this. This is, you know, I don't know if I feel like finding something else I like just as much. I probably don't like anything as much.
There's a lot of trails out there. Did anybody join you from your AT hike, either for the whole way or parts on the PCT? Any of your tramley?
Oh yeah, yeah. So uh, 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 the main person I was with for a lot of the hike, 3/4 of it, is my buddy Scroto. His PG name is Strodo, Strodo. His PG-13 name is Scroto, Scrodo. I call him Scroto, and I think everybody does at this point. But so I hiked with him on the AT. We met somewhere around like some Smokies early on, and then right around Damascus, he was just always way ahead of me because I was goofing off on the AT and, you know, we'd plan out 20-mile days, make it 4 miles, see a waterfall and be like, hell yeah, and we'd stop there. Whereas Scroto, like he's a very strong hiker. The fact that I could keep up with him this year makes me feel like, the strongest hiker in the whole freaking world. um, but so we both knew one of them was going to happen in 2025 because he and I both were okay. AT 23, and then 25 and 27 will be the Triple Crown. And so I did. We both started the same day, and I finished like the night before him, but then waited by the terminus for the following morning. So we celebrated kind of the PCT together. And we were together most of the time. But then also, my buddy Sergeant Pepper, who was part of the crew that I summited Katahdin with, he started about a month earlier than I did. And then he took a planned 3 week like vacation to go home for the birth of his second granddaughter. Then he came back, and by that time I was ahead of him. And then he had to skip some because of fire closures and whatnot. But we were able to hike together off and on for about a month on the PCT. So I got to see both of those guys out there, which was, it's so cool to come from the AT and then go to the PCT and share that same stretch of journey with folks. Really, really cool feeling.
Yeah, that's neat. So, what's the plan for who's coming along? I know I've heard you say you're going to do this CDT in 27.
Oh yeah.
What's that look like as far as like who's going to start out with you or maybe join you?
So we definitely got Scroto. He and I are, that's like 100% confirmed. And like I said, we knew one of them was going to happen this year, and then the third one would have been 2027. It all came down to we had a pretty small window for when we were okay starting the PCT. So it was a case of if we both get permit dates for the PCT in this pretty small window, then yeah, we can't turn that down. Let's do the PCT. Otherwise, we'll try again in 2027 and we'll do the CDT this year. And it was about a month that we were really not sure which one's it going to be. And we joked we were going to have like a gender reveal party when we knew the answer, like one color balloons for one, one for the other. Um, but so once it became obvious it was PCT this year, I think the current plan is to SOBO the CDT, which is a start give or take July 1st, so different time frame. Um, and again, it's the two of us are 100% confirmed, but me having my inner Pied Piper, I have a whole crap ton of people I'm trying to get come along. I think it's looking really, really likely at if nobody else, I think our buddy Oz, who his full trail name is the Wizard of Ounce, but we call it like OZ Ounce. We call him Oz. So and he and Scroto hiked a lot of the Appalachian Trail together. And I had met Oz on the AT as well, but they both were ahead of me as the trail got, more into it. But I think he's 99% in for the CDT 27. And then my good buddy Double D, I'm really trying to get him to come out and do it. There's a whole bunch of people that everybody knows my plan, and everybody who knows me knows that I'm just like, oh, you want to come along? The more the merrier, man. Come join us. Because the CDT is the one that I think the bigger crew you have, the better. You don't want to be alone out there for too long.
Yeah, I don't think you'll see the big groups at the start that you do on the AT.
No.
So, just to kind of finish up here, you've been really gracious with your time. What's maybe the next? Well, you mentioned July, so that's, I don't know, 18, 20 months. What's that going to look like for you in the interim before you know, set your foot on the CDT? What's that plans look like at this point?
So right now I'm working in Nevada as a hiking guide right now because ever since getting back from the AT, I think it had really helped keep the post-trail depression away. I never really slowed down. I live full-time out of the SUV and I just work a few months here, work a few months there. I think if I start to slow down and stay in one place for too long, I'm worried zombie Casey might, catch up with me or something like that. Um, so I'll be working. I'm liking it out here. This job I'm working right now in Nevada. Um, so I'm working seasonally out here, and then summer 2024, I worked a seasonal gig that I loved out in Montana. It's right outside of Yellowstone. It gave me a free dry cabin to live in, like it was literally less than a mile outside of Yellowstone. um, Beautiful, beautiful. Like, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Beartooth Mountains or the Beartooth Highway in Montana. Oh, you have? Yeah,
Yep.
it's
Yeah.
some of the prettiest stuff I've ever seen in my life. So I was there in summer 2024, and I wasn't able to go back because I did the PCT. But the people I worked with, my bosses, they were messaging me on WhatsApp the whole PCT, cheering me on, and the minute I finished, they said, "Awesome! Now get your ass back here next summer," kind of a thing. So I'm very excited to go back there. And I've done some kayak guiding down on the west coast of Florida, like the Sarasota Bradenton area. My mom has a house down there. So I'll be visiting her, I think right around my birthday, the end of December into like the first week of January. And I'm hoping to go to the Foothills Trail for the end of days hike this year. I know Randino and Fresh Ground both always go to that. Um, I like the Foothills Trail very, very much. So hanging out with Fresh Ground, seeing the Foothills Trail again. Um, but just like in 2024, I did a couple of those tier two hikes. 2026, at the bare minimum, I'm doing one decently long through hike. And I think me and my buddy GT, we have it narrowed down to either the Colorado Trail or the Superior Hiking Trail up in the Great Lakes area. Um, and that's at the bare minimum. I'm just doing that one. If I can make enough money and save up, I'll do more than one. um, but yeah, and I don't know if I'll ever change that way of doing it. Just like on my odd years, I do like one of the big Triple Crown trails or a longer through hike. And on the even years, I work more and do one or two smaller hikes. Because, there's already rumblings that two very, very good friends of mine, Million Bucks and GT, they're going to through hike the PCT in 2029. They want me to go with them. So that very well might be the start of Triple Crown round two. We'll see.
That I mean, that's a great segue because literally the last question I was going to ask you was this. Vegas was born out of your first through hike of the Appalachian Trail, and I know you probably have a love for that trail, as you do probably the others, but probably the AT is special to you. Would you do the AT again? And I think you just answered it there, but what would your feeling be on hiking the AT for a second time?
I think my answer to that would be even if I don't do a Triple Crown a second time, I can confidently say 99% yes, I'll do the AT again. And if I do end up doing the PCT in 2029 with them, there's no way I'm not going to do the AT a second time also. Because, yeah, the AT is special to me. Um, I think it's very, very likely that I will through hike the AT again at some point. And I think it's definite that there's a good chance that any given year in the next 50 years, you very well might see me out there somewhere on the AT, just Peter Pan style floating around. I'll never be too far away from that place.
Well, if you find yourself back on the AT and you're up here in Maine, I definitely want you to reach out to me once you hit the other
Oh, yeah.
side of the Kennebec River because I would love to meet you in person
Yeah.
and really enjoy your company and maybe even hike with you because it's funny, we've never met before this, only talked over text, but you mentioned it earlier, just that brotherhood or kinship you feel with people that have done, the Appalachian Trail because that's the only one I've done. But it's kind of like what that person went through,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
it's a kind of a bond whether you did it lockstep beside them or in my case behind them a lot of the time because I was slower. But it's something that you feel for sure. So, and again, I just want to thank you for coming on the show. I just love talking to people like you're big into the community like me, and I'm very passionate about it. And I just like talking to, like-minded souls about the AT. So thank you.
Oh, dude, I had a blast. Anytime. You hit me up anytime about it. And I was gonna say to you whether it was here talking to you now or texting afterwards, like, hey, next time I'm in Maine, I hope you're okay with me looking you up because I want to go on a hike with you. So that sounds awesome, man. Thank you so much for having me.
100%. I'll take you. Yeah, yeah, if you do the AT again, we'll finish with this. If you do the AT again, I'll meet you, I'll summit with you, and then we'll keep going because this past summer I did the main section of the International AT Trail, which starts at the summit of Katahdin and goes to the Canadian border. It's an extra 135 miles if you're not tired by the time you get there.
That sounds awesome because I've already thought maybe I should just go ahead and do the ECT if I'm going to do the AT again. So you be careful what you wish for because I very, very well might take you up on that. Sounds awesome.
I would love to do it. Thanks again, man, and have a great day out there.
Yeah, you too, man. Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
See ya.
Take care.